Hello and welcome to the Damage Report, everyone. I'm John Idarola, and it is impossible for me to forget for even a second that I'm joined here today by Brett Erlich. Brett, host of the Happy Half Hour and other stuff too. How you doing?
I'm doing so great today, John. I woke up early. Yesterday, I slept, my phone died in the middle of the night, and now I don't trust anything in the world. So I'm just slowly easing back into having faith in society and technology.
Okay.
But that's it. How are you? How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I had a rough start to the day. I headed to work early because the traffic, since people have started going back to work and all that, has been very chaotic. It's difficult to know how long it's gonna take. So I left 15 minutes early. And then I have to go up a very long, very fast street that you can't turn off of. And 2 miles before I turn off of it, before there should ever be traffic, it was bumper to bumper traffic, and I was terrified that I would be stuck on that street for an hour and a half. Ended up being okay. Technology had failed. There was a stoplight that was off, but I don't know. Sometimes it's difficult to recover from the early morning stuff, but what we do have to help us recover is some fun, interesting news. We're gonna get to dunk on some truly awful people. Electorally, we have some good news. We have some bad news. It's gonna be a mix of those two things, but we're gonna be talking about the war in Ukraine and crime and Apple TV shows and death and maybe some fun stuff when, in the extended show, we throw away our garbage people of the week. As I was telling the pre-port viewers, I have a first time entry, garbage people of the week. I think it's likely for the duration of the show's run to be the only time this particular thing goes in the garbage, but that'll be coming up in just a little bit.
Me too, in a way.
Excited for that. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Well, everyone watching, please hit the like button, share the stream in advance of all that. We're about to jump into the news in just a sec, but if you want to send us any comments, tweets, or super chats, we'll respond to them as we go. But with all that said, Brett, are you ready to start the show?
For those listening to the podcast, I'm raising the roof.
He's raising the frame of the video. Okay, let's catch people up on the chaos of last night. You want to get an idea of how Twitter is going? Well, we found out yesterday that they had alerted employees that effective immediately, all office buildings are temporarily closed and badge access is suspended. No details given as to why. Always a good sign when you're told you cannot go to the building. We can't tell you why you can't go to the building, but you can't go to the building. Oh, by the way, this is a follow-up to us telling people that remote work is done. Everyone needs to show up now, please don't show up. Eventually, there was a follow-up. Apparently, it was because Elon Musk and his team were terrified that employees were going to sabotage the company, which is his job. Everybody needs to stop trying to take his job. He's doing a perfectly good job himself. And here's the thing, they need time to cut access to the potentially thousands of employees they've lost in the last 24 hours. And it is difficult for them to do that because they've lost so many of the people whose job it is to transition people out of employment. It is so falling apart that it's difficult for them to even know who it is that's supposed to have access and who isn't, and for you to actually manage that process. Anyway, all of this is a follow-up to his big ultimatum. You might have heard at various points in your life that giving an ultimatum is always pitched as a sign of strength, but it is in fact always a sign of weakness. And that is being demonstrated in this case. He had earlier given people at Twitter an ultimatum that they had to pledge to become hardcore or something, or else they could leave and get 3 months severance pay, which it turns out when the options are keep working for the guy who's gonna constantly condescend to you and mock you, or take the holidays off and then look for work next year. A lot of people, it turns out, are going for that. And this is consequential, not just for badge access to the buildings, but the Washington Post spoke to a former employee who says, I know of 6 critical systems, like serving tweets level of critical, which no longer have any engineers. There's no longer even a skeleton crew manning the system. It will continue to coast until it runs into something, and then it will stop. And they say every mistake in code and operations is now deadly. Those left, the employees that remain, are going to be overwhelmed, overworked, and because of that, more likely to make mistakes. But at the very least, they'll have high morale or something. Anyway, Brett, what do you think?
I'm always super careful about celebrating the death of billionaire-backed companies. I remember when the feed first rolled out on Facebook, it was a damn nightmare. And Mark Zuckerberg tried to get out in front of it by writing essentially like a please, please, please pardon our mess letter. And everybody was saying Facebook is done. That was in 2006. And it has since become a multi-bajillion-dollar company.
Yeah.
Similarly, like for people that don't understand how it works, I always come back to I'm starting to frequently come back to this like Newtonian mechanics, quantum mechanics. Those are Newtonian mechanics, something you can wrap your mind around. You take a bouncy ball and you drop it. You can do the math and find out how high it goes when it bounces. But if you make it smaller and smaller, suddenly it just stops obeying those rules. That's like the economy. We live in the bouncy ball world where we know how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. If we don't have any money, we can't buy things. Companies don't work like that. For them, it's the opposite. When things get big enough, they just seem to not do the same things that happen to your bank account and my bank account. What I'm scared is gonna happen is Elon Musk is gonna make such a huge mess out of Twitter that he's gonna invent some weird little thing that is suddenly valuable. And he's going to sell the company based on that and make money off it. I don't know, everyone just gets scared of that, but I wouldn't celebrate so intensely how horrible things are going at Twitter until the logo actually dies.
Until the logo like falls off the outside of the building or something. Yeah, and look, I would say my celebration, if it can be described as that, is it's there for some things and not for others. I don't overall want Twitter to die. I think that Twitter served a purpose. I think it could have always been better at that purpose. But if we're constantly being told that these people are the best, smartest, hardest working people, why don't you guys just bow down to these sorts of people? And they come in and they demonstrate to us that they don't understand engineering. He doesn't even appear to understand management, because some of these decisions he's made in both sides are like, it's not like he swung hard and missed. It made no sense to swing in some of these areas at all. But anyway, we're gonna hold. I gotta catch people up on more of what's going on. We're still trying to figure out an actual estimate of how many people complied with the ultimatum and how many fled. Some people are saying there might be 2,000 to 2,500 employees remaining. That's down from the 3,500 that were there after he basically canned half of the entire company. Access cutoffs have been delayed because they're not sure who's gone, because most of human resources left, according to one of the employees. People are saying that in the chat that the payroll department has taken massive hits too, so that'll be fun. But anyway, among those who are said to have declined to sign the pledge was half of the trust and safety policy team, including a majority of those who work on spotting misinformation, spam, fake accounts, and impersonation. Now, to be fair, he is trying to do some hiring, both rehiring, like literally reaching out to people that he's already fired to bring back, which is awesome and a great plan if you're paranoid about sabotage. But also, they are sending out outreach emails with the title Twitter 2.0, an Elon company. I don't think you can tell people that it's an Elon company. I think everyone can look at the chaos and know that it's an Elon company at this point. But anyway, so that's where we stand right now. We will see, I guess. I know people last night were worried that the whole thing could catastrophically fall apart. A lot of engineers are saying that looks likely unless they hire more engineers. That doesn't mean it's gonna happen in 3 hours or anything, but Brett, give me your thoughts.
I mean, there was the fail whale in the past. So I grew up in a time when Twitter would absolutely crash and you'd be just like, all right, I guess I'll wait for it to come back up. You're going back to my day, but how much does it say of Elon Musk that he has brought Twitter back to 2004? I like that they call it an Elon company. I'd rather rebrand it a cluster Musk.
How about an Erlich company?
It's so stupid. It just reveals that this guy's grew up in a household where a guy ran a mine. That's how he runs everything. And everybody talks about like the magic of Elon Musk's management style. I know people who work at SpaceX, it sounds exactly like what they're doing here. They tell you, listen, I pay your salary, so I'm gonna lock the doors and you're gonna get fired if you don't accomplish my insane goal. That is similar to how the pyramids were built. And they just threw human death and suffering at them, and to quote Louis C.K., until they happen. That is his management style. And I know a lot of people who are people on the left don't understand, like, frequently they're like, oh, we're the workers and we should own everything. It's like, I think that's a way disproportionate to how things have to work in a company. But they're absolutely right when they say, by the way, Elon Musk is a absolutely entitled brat who says, since I'm the CEO, I can make you do whatever I want. And he's doing this with engineers who are like, I can go get a job anywhere else in Silicon Valley if I want. So I'm gonna go do that immediately.
Yeah.
Because his management style is absolutely crazy. And also, like, the difference between Twitter and, say, Tesla before the car was invented, the car was finished, and SpaceX before the rockets landed, is like you had a goal in mind for those. I want to build a rocket that takes off and lands. This one, what's the goal? To get rid of misinformation? Okay, then just try to do that, but it wasn't your goal. You just wanted to be in charge of the company and do it the way you wanted to do it. And there's no like actual business oriented goal that you're accomplishing with that.
No, he appears to believe right-wing like narratives around how the blue checks are out of control and they're mean to right-wingers. That seems to be what motivated. He's super into Twitter. He's obsessed with Twitter. He believes that his experience on Twitter is universal. That's what everyone is experiencing. And that is leading him to make all of these horrible decisions. I'll remind you, they stopped the Twitter Blue signups. Okay, so they rolled it out. Some people signed up, like I think 30,000 more people than had previously been signed up. It's absolutely minuscule amount of money that will not pay off even a tiny fraction of the interest on the debt that he's accrued in buying Twitter. But they had to stop it. And he put out a tweet saying it's gonna come back on November 29th when it's rock solid. And that tweet demonstrates that he still has no idea what he's talking about, because he still thinks the issue is an engineering thing. We know we need to handle the code better. It's not. The issue with the way that you did Twitter Blue is you took something that meant something, and to own the libs, you stripped away its meaning, which has resulted in it not meaning that anymore. Seeing the blue check does not mean that you can be relatively sure that this is an actual person that is sending this message, that what they're saying is what they actually mean. I've actually been fooled in the last couple of days by seeing something and assuming that it was true. And you can't be, and especially when analyses have shown that the new signups aren't even an even distribution or representation of Twitter users. It's largely crypto bros, right-wing political people, Elon Musk fanboys, and I think in a lot of cases, accounts having to do with pornography. That's who are the people who are signing up for Twitter Blue. Most of that I'm perfectly fine with. I don't have a problem with. But I don't need more feigned authenticity to crypto spam people.
But that's like, it is. You don't need a decoder ring to figure out what's happening. Like, Elon Musk used Twitter as a way to create this sense of authenticity and reality that wasn't authentic or real. He did it to create Dogecoin runs and various other runs that got him a lot of money. The reason there's crypto bros following that lead is they know that this is one of the places that isn't regulated by common sense rules that keep you from getting screwed. And they took it over so that they could get rid of all the checks and balances on their nonsense. And the thing is, that's the only, that's the only truth that we can find. Anything else he said is proven to be absolute BS. It's all a grift, and it's all gonna hopefully blow up in his face, because I love watching libertarians realize you need like at least like 2 rules.
Yeah, or at the very least, you need someone who can learn from these experiences, and he has demonstrated that he can't. Why don't we jump into that? Last night, while a lot of people were maybe preemptively mourning the death of Twitter, and sort of like, reminiscing on the good times or thanking the people who made the experience not always absolutely awful. Elon Musk was delighting in the chaos as a significant portion of his employees flipped him the bird and fled the company. He was doing things like this. So AOC tweeted, "Shout out to all the workers at Twitter. You all built a vital place for connection and deserved so much better. Millions of people appreciate the space you built and the hard work that went into it. Thank you." And he responded to her, "You're welcome." Because he is not going to allow like an expression of admiration for the working class to go without him undercutting it in some way. This guy despises workers more than anyone else in the country potentially. He combined that with trying to distract with squirrels, putting out this meme, FTX losing over $1 billion of client funds. And senators are calling for the FTC to investigate Twitter. You see, they're focusing on Twitter. Why aren't they focusing on the FTX thing? Except that, as people point out, they're already talking about investigations into that particular, the DOJ is talking about it, individual senators are talking about that. And by the way, how about this? Look into both. I'm not happy with either of these people conning massive numbers of people. And even as all these employers were going away, he was talking about how we've hit an all-time high in Twitter usage, which might or might not even be true because he routinely just lies about the facts of what's going on at Twitter. But even if so, people were logging on to talk about it ending. It doesn't mean it's an expression of the changes you made are working well. And then he goes on and he does things like this. He posts, "How do you make a small fortune in social media? Start out with a large one." See, that's supposed to be self-deprecating, except like with virtually every joke he tells, he had just been sent that message, didn't even have like the common courtesy to like the Elon Musk fans tweet who sent it to him, and then just posted it. He did that with virtually every one of the memes he put out. He does it every single time. An Elon Musk fan is like, "Please notice me." He doesn't even like it. He takes it, he posts it for himself as if he came up with it. He can't even be authentically self-deprecating.
My favorite thing about all this is he could have done every single thing he's doing on Twitter without buying it. He could be a little schmuck. And he could have done all of that stuff just as effectively. He didn't realize that he shouldn't have bought Twitter. It's so stupid. And also, like there's an all-time high for Twitter usage. Even if that's true, that's like saying there's an all-time high for people stopping and looking at a train wreck. Yeah, that's exactly. When there's a train wreck. When they clean it up after the wreckage has stopped smoldering, then there won't be as many people there to look at it. Yeah, it's just like, what are we gonna do? This is the uncertainty that he creates, and I just don't see how he's gonna capitalize it on it unless like he shorts his own stock.
Yeah, well, and maybe there's some sort of financial long game, but I don't know if Twitter is going to die. But best case scenario, it manages to hold on somewhat like it was before. Like he came in with all of his genius and know-how. What change has he made that's improved it? Even an Elon Musk fan, can they even point to anything? You can buy a fake version of a verification check mark. I guess that's better for some people, I suppose. Anyway, I want to read this real quick. Dave Portnoy, Barstool Sports president, he tweeted this. "What do people mean when they say Twitter is going to shut down? Doesn't it kind of run itself? I feel like engineers are for changes, not to just keep it running. I also don't know anything. Hey, Elon Musk, want to do a Twitter space with me? I'm confused." If he is not joking there, that is amazing. The misunderstanding of how any of this works. But in response, Elon Musk did reply to him because there is a certain sort of person he will reply to on Twitter and says the best people are staying, so I'm not super worried. That's not how that works either. Like the 3 or 4 most loyal engineers are not necessarily the thing that's going to save this. That's not how big tech companies work.
The best part about this is when for years you would go on Twitter and the queue that they give you right to indicate where to write your status just is "what's happening?" ? Never before in the history of Twitter has it seemed like Twitter itself is asking you, "No, seriously, what's happening?"
You got to give me something. What is going on? Anyway,
you're going through the changes. It's painful. We all went through them.
Exactly. Look, it is just, it's a weird thing. Like a lot of people have been like consoling everyone by saying like, you know what, it's tough. This is tough for organizers. A lot of people who have organized, especially for marginalized communities, this has been an important site to do that. A lot of independent journalists don't have an equivalent that they can easily switch over to promote their work. This is going to hurt a lot of people. And some have said, well, don't worry. There are lots of text, like social media sites you used to use that you don't anymore. We'll move on. And that's true in a meta zoomed out sense, but it's never worked like this before. Those sites died because people chose to go away because better things happened. It wasn't killed while it was working without a replacement in place. It wasn't that a billionaire man baby came in and just wrecked the entire thing in 17 days. This is actually novel on the internet. It's never worked like this before.
He could have taken money and created his own social media site for less than $44 billion.
Way cheaper. No, but that's not what he does. You know his career. Everybody thinks he invented all this stuff. He comes in and buys companies that already exist to engineer products. And I will remind you, he's not an engineer and he's not building the cars and the rockets. That's not actually how this works. And there's some pretty amazing investigative journalism going on about exactly what degrees he actually has. So you can look that up too. But anyway, he comes in and they have products, and he might pre-Twitter, he might have even been able to make the case that while he's viciously censorious to his own workers, he has no respect for them whatsoever, despises unions, he's terrible in that respect. You could maybe say that at least as a manager, they deliver products. In the case of Tesla, often years and years after they say they will and all that, but they do at least deliver. He was never an engineer, but he could have made the case he was a manager. Now he's ruining even that. That said, there are some quick final point.
Yeah, I would say that he's always been the man. He's always been that kind of manager. The thing is, there was never a working company quite like, the ones that he's famous for, Tesla and SpaceX. It's not like they had the cars and they had the rockets first. He just always was able to throw human death and suffering at them until they existed. But now he's taking a working rocket and throwing his stupidity at it until it breaks.
Yeah, I guess when he was doing Tesla and SpaceX, the most important thing to him wasn't having cat turd think he's clever. Turns out that can undercut your ability to manage a company. Like if the most important thing to you is that like right-wing grifters that don't even live in America opining about Donald Trump, the most important thing is that they like you. When he's literally responding to Kyle Rittenhouse on Twitter, maybe that's gonna undercut your ability to deliver on your supposed goals. Okay, really fast, let's play this video and we'll respond.
Elon Musk pushing to weed out the woke at Twitter, reportedly telling employees in a late night memo that they have until 5 o'clock today to sign on to a new, quote, hardcore work culture of long hours and high intensity, or they can leave Twitter with 3 months severance. Musk adding that, quote, only exceptional performance will constitute a passing grade. Employees must sign on to the ultimatum by clicking a yes icon if they want to stay on. As for Musk himself, he plans to reduce his time at Twitter soon and put someone else in charge of running it. The old cushy culture days at Twitter are a thing of the past.
Well, we'll see if it works, because if everybody leaves and he has nobody left to work, that might change his thinking on this. But
well, that's true.
Yeah.
But that's they were getting a lot of perks at Twitter. Apparently, people got their laundry done for free.
Sounds great. We'll see what happens with this. I mean, he's trying something different there, and some people are very critical of it. We'll see if it works for him and for that company.
Imagine that, hard work, what a concept.
Okay,
Brett, I can see that you're excited. What are your thoughts?
John Roberts gets his hair done, his makeup done, his wardrobe done for free. He wakes up in the morning, a car is at his door, drives him into the studio for him to read the teleprompter and ask the questions that the producer asked him to ask in his ear. That is a man who doesn't work for crap. He doesn't have any discernible skills other than looking like an old cartoon of what a anchor looks like. I've seen that guy, dude. I've seen him in the White House press conferences. That guy's job is so cushy. And there's no proof that they're weeding out the woke at Twitter. They're weeding out engineers. Yep. They're weeding out people who say like, I have to write this like whatever. I have to write my code so that the whale doesn't show up and the Twitter bird does. That's it. Weeding out the woke, that is you guys voicing that onto everyone. And that is lip service to conservatives who just want to watch the news, not and find out what's going on, but to watch the news and feel good about how they're the ones who work hard. And anyone who pushes back at their job in any way is absolutely positively a whiny little millennial with avocado toast.
100%, yeah. The reason they just say they're the woke or whatever is because they believe right-wing narratives about what Twitter is. They believe that it's biased against right-wingers, even though the exact opposite is true. They just believe that, and it doesn't really matter that John Roberts believes that, but Elon Musk believes that. And if you go in to take over a company like that with wild misconceptions about its corporate culture, how it actually functions, who it benefits, who it disadvantages, how are you gonna do a good job? How are you gonna do any better job at your job than John Roberts is doing at his job? 100%, every single one of those Fox anchors has amazing benefits that would make your eyes pop out of your skull. They would lose their minds if they lost them, by the way.
I haven't been to the Fox News studios in New York, but I've been to the Bloomberg office, and like that, the Bloomberg building has like craft services up the yin yang, like freaking carts with sundaes on them that come to your desk and are like, "Do you want sundaes?" And you know what? All those perks are not designed to make it a completely frou-frou, happy little, paradise where you don't have to work. They're all designed to keep you at your desk, you idiots. That's why they have all those things in the complex, so you don't want to go home. So you stay at your desk and you eat yogurt-covered pretzels until you're done with your assignment, while someone's giving you back massages and chiropractic alignments at your desk.
Yes, to keep you at your desk and also keep you at your job, because they've somehow missed that they're not giving all of these perks because they just love their employees so much. They know that their employees could potentially go work for other people and their employees are genuinely valuable. That's what those managers get that people like Elon Musk and John Roberts do not get. And if you want to understand who John Roberts is and how much he understands the way the real world actually functions, there was an amazing interaction there where he was like, woke this and woke that, they should just get out of there. And then whoever the other anchor is, she comes in and seems, she doesn't want to challenge him too much, but she's being sort of reasonable. And she's like, well, yeah, but if the employees all leave, that could be bad for him. And John Roberts is like, that's true. He hadn't considered that you might need employees for something like this. How would John Roberts do if the cameraman didn't show up and all of his producers didn't come and the makeup person doesn't? Does he not get that this work rests on a foundation of many other people's contributions? I know that that's the narrative that he's supposed to spin for their audience, but he appears to not actually understand that. God, they love condescending to workers.
Anyway. It's so stupid. They're
very stupid. Yeah, we're gonna mix it up. We're gonna talk about some other news. Let's first take a break. We'll be back in just a few. My timer was still at 20 seconds on the screen, but okay. Anyway, we got a lot more news to get to, everybody. Let's jump into some policy. A federal judge has struck down one of Governor Ron DeSantis's biggest culture war accomplishments of the past couple of years. This is the Stop Woke Act, which is as dumb as it sounds. The legislation prohibits educational institutions and businesses from teaching students and employees anything that would cause anyone to, quote, feel guilt, anguish, or any form of psychological distress due to their race, color, sex, or national origin. It specifically outlaws teachings that may promote guilt or invoke senses of privilege for, quote, actions committed in the past by other members of a group. We're gonna briefly detour to point out that the group that has railed against snowflakes for years and years and years wants to make sure that under penalty of law, you're not made to feel any negative feelings. Anyway, Judge Mark Walter decided to at least temporarily strike this down. And in doing so, he quoted George Orwell's 1984 saying, "It was a bright, cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. And the powers in charge of Florida's public university system have declared the state has unfettered authority to muzzle its professors in the name of freedom. Defendants argue that under this act, professors enjoy academic freedom so long as they express only those viewpoints of which the state approves. This is positively dystopian. Our professors are critical to a healthy democracy, and the state of Florida's decision to choose which viewpoints are worthy of illumination and which must remain in the shadows has implications for us all. If our priests of democracy are not allowed to shed light on challenging ideas, then democracy will die in darkness. The DeSantis administration, of course, is going to appeal this, and one can guess where the Supreme Court would come down on this. But this is an explicitly censorious law. It is the government of Florida stopping professors from teaching accurate history, amongst other topics. Brett, what do you think?
And it's insanely vague to say that if you feel a little bit, if the kids might feel a little guilty for anything, like a reasonable person would feel guilty if you traced what happened from slavery through Jim Crow through voter suppression laws. Like a reasonable person would feel guilty. So essentially, the framework that they laid down is that you can't tell people facts. And that's what they're talking about is dystopian. They're making it so that you have to tell the kids like, it's okay, everything's fine. I'm gonna coddle you and not tell you these facts as they happened. And I totally understand like the idea that you shouldn't like drop kids into like the worst ideas. You should shield kids from some ideas until they're old enough to understand it. But that's not what this Stop Woke Act protected them from. It protected it. What it did, the Stop Woke Act and the entire fight against critical race theory and everything was the Republicans looking around and saying, how do we harness resentment of white people? The white people feel toward anyone who might point out any facts. Yeah. And so they started a years-long crusade against something that didn't really exist. No one was really taking kids and saying, you're white, so you're evil. They were saying there was slavery and it made it harder. The legacy of that we can easily trace through a certain kind of person being treated better by society than another. That's it. And what this does, all this does is have the Florida government tell people that they can't learn certain things and that people hired by the government can't say those things.
Yeah, and look, you can be against this for, obviously this is a propagandistic law. It's designed to produce teaching that favors one inaccurate historical worldview. And they say they're against propaganda. It obviously, like, if you're worried about snowflakes, the idea of passing this is ridiculous. If you supposedly are against cancel culture, the idea of firing professors for teaching factual history is ridiculous. So all of this is inherently hypocritical, but also like no one, as Brett said, no one is being trained that they are personally culpable for slavery or culpable for anything that happened before they were born. You are only responsible for the things you do now, and they don't want you to even be responsible for that. But if the idea is, how dare you state that there was ever systemic racism, that the structures of government were ever used in a racist fashion, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the structures of government to stop you from ever learning the accurate history of racism in America, that is a demonstration of the continued need to teach that. It's been stopped right now. We're gonna see what the Supreme Court. I have a feeling they're not going to knock it down. And by the way, really fast, this isn't even really about stopping kids from learning this because the joke is on them. This is the American education system. They weren't gonna learn much of the accurate history of structural racism anyway. This to me is DeSantis sending a signal to adults in Florida. I'm gonna protect your kids from them damn lefties. That's to me what it's far more about. It's sending a signal to them that I'm not gonna ever have your kids learn dangerous things that they could then start to judge you based on. Again, not based on personal culpability with slavery or anything, but based on what those adults are saying and doing right now.
The worst part is that it's working. The part that frustrates me is like that it's fooled. This whole it's an absolute extension of the Democrats drink baby blood QAnon conspiracy theory. That's what they're doing. They're trying to extrapolate that and translate it so that it's more palpable to larger audiences, but it's the same dynamic. And the worst part is that like all these comedians have been snowed by this approach. The Joe Rogans, the Dave Chappelles, people who I have been entertained by before, Bill Maher as well. I watch his show and I laugh at certain parts, but still, they all have turned into Lenny Bruce. Now, Lenny Bruce did a lot of great comedy and then got arrested for obscenity because he used a bad word. But the difference between Lenny Bruce and these guys who think they're the new Lenny Bruce is those guys didn't get arrested. Those guys are just like sitting in their really fancy condos and houses being like, it's so tough to be me.
Yeah. The consequences aren't being locked up. The consequences are that people don't think that their lowest common denominator, hack, racist, and misogynistic jokes are funny anymore. And sure, some people do. You can have those people laugh at your jokes. It's just not the widespread acclaim that you probably wish you'd have. Anyway, with that said, why don't we move into our next topic? Whenever you're ready, you can launch us into the C block with this first video.
Hey everyone, great news tonight as almost all the votes have finally been tallied. I'm told that there are less than 200 votes outstanding, which makes me so happy to announce we have won this race.
Well, maybe. I mean, she's declaring victory, but to be clear, no one else is calling this race. And while I personally think that in the end she will win, as of right now, she can smile into the camera as much as she wants. The actual legal process is going to continue because this thing is incredibly close. As of the most recent counting, and it appears that this is still accurate, she is up by like 551 votes out of 1/3 of a million. This is a 0.16% race. Still easily enough to trigger the recount, which we're going to get. And admittedly, she at least seems like she gets that this is going to be a process as she continues in this video.
Now, over the next couple of weeks, this race will have an automatic recount, which will be completed in early December. My campaign team and our lawyers will definitely make sure everything is conducted properly. Past recounts in Colorado have resulted in far fewer votes being adjusted than anything that could affect the current outcome we're seeing tonight in this race. So come January, you can be certain of two things. I will be sworn in for my second term as your Congresswoman, and Republicans can finally turn Pelosi's house back into the people's house.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, that's gonna happen regardless of whether you go to Congress or not. Well, not to the people's house, but to the Republicans' house. The Republicans have taken over, and again, I think she's going to win. But it seems weird to jump out in front. I don't think this is like a lot of the Stop the Steal people will preemptively declare victory because they think that buttresses their legal claims. I don't think that she's doing that. I don't think this is like a denying the election thing, especially because admittedly, she is up in the count right now. I think doing this video and being all smiley is designed to paper over the fact that this was way closer than it ever should have been. This is the closest race in the country. She not only is the incumbent, but due to redistricting, her district was more Republican than it was when she won back in 2020. And yet this was incredibly close. That makes her look incredibly vulnerable. And so if I were her, yeah, I'd probably want to be reassuring people that like, no, I'm all happy, everything's great. I'm not at all worried about what's gonna happen in 2 years.
Sorry, I disagree with Lauren Boebert, and I accept the win that I have achieved in Rifle, Colorado and the surrounding areas. How is my logic just as good as hers? Well, I too can distance myself from how things are typically supposed to work. I will say that look at the results. When faced with the choice between Lauren Boebert and her opponent, roughly half the people voted against her. When faced with the choice of the opponent or Lauren Boebert, about half the people voted against him. Mm-hmm. Nobody in that district, when faced with the choice between me and those two other people, voted against me. I got no votes against when people had that option. So I declare myself as the winner of that district, and two things are for sure. When I show up, one, I will be sworn in by somebody in January. And 2, it will be a cold day in hell when she can convince America that she had a resounding victory in a district that Trump won comfortably and which she won comfortably. And the only variable at play is that now people know her better. And just like Madison Cawthorn, people didn't like her better.
Yeah. And like I said, I expect that once this recount is done within a few weeks or a month, whatever it is, I think that she will end up winning. But this is how close it was with a Democratic candidate who wasn't really being supported by the party in a year that was supposed to benefit the Republicans. She better be really careful going forward because it's likely that 2024 is gonna be significantly more difficult for her. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna take our second break of the show, so don't go anywhere. We've got some spicy takes for you after this.
To say. I mean, Zelensky is a corrupt oligarch who's a psychopath who clearly wants to drag us into nuclear war. Putin's a thug. That's fair enough. But people are trying to frame this argument as a fight over democracy and freedom. And it's an age-old fight. I consider it more Bloods versus Crips.
So look, Fox's takes on the Ukrainian conflict have not been great from the very beginning. But they are, many months into this conflict, finding new areas to make it absolutely gross and awful in. So why he needed to throw out weird Fox News racist stuff, I don't know. Referring to him as a psychopath, I guess that can be your opinion. The idea that anyone should feel weird if they think that this conflict might in some way be part of a battle between democracy and authoritarianship, well, that's just factual at that, but I don't know what to tell you. You can take it up with the different political systems of the invader and the invaded, but what I love about these sort of clips is that it's not that they have a position where we shouldn't be supporting Ukraine. Of course, they can have that position. You can say that it's too much money or it's not our fight or whatever. It's that that's not how they're communicating it to their audience. They have to attack the Ukrainian leadership and the Ukrainian people. They have to apologize for the daily war crimes that are being perpetuated, that we're learning more and more about every day. It's not just that they don't want the arms to go there. They hate that Ukraine is surviving. It's a visceral thing. And so that's gonna come in another form in just a second. But Brett, what do you think?
No one cares about foreign policy. No one cares enough about foreign policy, especially if there's no Americans dying. When there are Americans dying, obviously the care goes more, but generally the percentage of the American population that engages and is actually in danger is low. So no one actually cares, and I'm talking as a percentage. So what do you do with that? Most people in politics then look at how do I leverage what care there is out there in any way, shape, or form for my own benefit. And so the right has largely been trying to say, I now, with my shrinking population that votes for me and likes me, I want to grow that tent. So I'm going to start reaching for anyone who's anti-interventionist. That's my move now. Because I'm not, there's 80 whatever senators voted to fund Ukraine in the first place. It doesn't matter, but all the Democrats did. So now my move is to get people to join the Republican Party who are anti-interventionist. What they don't understand is that, like, here's the thing to say. It's the of course argument. It's the of course, as America is a major player in geopolitical world. Obviously, we want to make it so that if there's a country that didn't ask for it, that's getting invaded, we help them and we help the Ukrainian people who were just like living their lives and then got invaded and are in an existential threat. And then we say, for every dollar that we're spending extra on Ukraine, I want you to also spend $1 here at home. That's the move. That's the talking point. That's the approach that we should all be taking.
Yeah.
But the Republicans over there, they know that there's people out there who don't care about Ukraine who are watching, who just need some vaguely partisan talking point to be handed down to them. And this is the one they're going with.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like there is, you gave one version of it. There are cases that could be made. I don't think that it's our role to be involved in this. I'm worried about it being dragged into a larger conflict. That is one thing, but you should hate the country being invaded is such a different thing, such a needless thing that you would work every day to apologize for the brutal things that Russia is doing, the murders, the rapes, the robberies, the mass deportations that are going on right now. That does not, like, they're not pretending that that doesn't bother them. That legitimately does not bother whoever the hell that correspondent was and most of the hosts on Fox, which is miles away from, we spend too much on defense, this isn't our fight. I wish them well. I hope that they ward off these invaders, but it's not our role to defend them. That is so far from the position that they're in. But he's not the only one that decided to invoke this sort of weird racist terminology. Take a look at this next video.
Proxy war with Russia. We had 5 million people cross our border illegally since Joe Biden took office. And let's compare that to how many Russians have invaded Ukraine. 82,000 Russians have invaded Ukraine. I think the American people and the taxpayers of this country deserve to know why the Biden administration and this Congress is so interested in funding the protection of Ukraine's border and not the protection of our border. That's a very good question.
Well, to be fair, it's phrased as a question. You're not actually interested in diving into that. You're not curious about literally any of this. That's an absolutely absurd, insulting comparison to make, because while you can use the word invade, while you can pitch migrants crossing over the border to get rid of or to get away from political instability, domestic violence, bad economies, some of the natural consequences of us meddling with countries in our hemisphere over the past few decades, you can say that's an invasion. That doesn't literally make it an invasion, okay? Like, she is not actually interested in that. She knows that she needs to turn people against the support of Ukraine. And so what do? I mean, they're never gonna actually make the case that Russia should conquer Ukraine, because that's insane. That's what they're fine with, but they can't make that case. So instead it has to be, well, Russia didn't send nearly as many soldiers as migrants from Guatemala came, so I guess we should address that instead. The one has nothing to do with the other. Brett, what do you think?
America spends $8 billion on ICE every year. That's just part of it. State budgets also buttress that. That's BS. But like, the people who invade America are armed with like shoes and the clothes on their back. Yep. The people who are invading Ukraine, no quotes needed, are armed with guns and missiles and tanks. What a weirdo. Like, I hate to bring you, like, words have meaning, but invasion needs to have a meaning, guys. If you're gonna police us with what does a woman mean, I need you to say what invasion means, because the people who are coming here through the southern border actually contribute to the economy and commit crimes at a clip lower than that of people who are citizens. And there's a whole other, they pay taxes. No one invading Ukraine has anything remotely close to that. She is so stupid. That's when you have people like, you think that's a good point? Oh my God, you're the dumbest person I have ever heard.
She actually thinks that that's a good point, or at least she knows that it will work for right wingers. They will find that distraction to be very convincing, because they're never gonna think of these migrants as people who just want to have a better life, and in living that better life contribute to America as migrants do. Instead, think of the Russians or whatever. Now, in general, I don't know that there are many mass graves caused by people fleeing political instability in the southern hemisphere, but yeah, I guess you can make that argument. And again, this isn't just stupidity on display. Why do you train people to think about immigration with the terminology of war, so that people will think rationally and calmly about the topic in the future? No. Okay, thank you to everyone on our linear platforms and on the podcast. There's a lot more show where that came from though, so we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.